This is Eric Johnson, Coach EJ, the brand.
And this is Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source.
Welcome to our podcast today, people. Aaron, we got a great subject today. What's your thoughts on this subject? Can you tell the people what's going on out there?
Yeah, today's topic is the evolution of instruction. And what we mean by that is actually what's the process that an athlete and coach or trainer go through and taking them through his athletic career. Both of us have worked with athletes for over 25 years, and we've had some athletes for a brief period of time, obviously for momentary fixes, and we've talked about that on our podcast.
Right.
And then we've had some who've been with us, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years, from adolescence to adulthood. And I think that there needs to be an understanding of that process and how it can benefit an athlete if you understand at least our perspective on the stages of what we might want to take an athlete through to have success, because the success isn't just based on the instructional information that we can give an athlete, how to run or how to swing a bat or how to dribble a ball. Right. It's also about the interpersonal connection that happens and the communication and trust that builds over a period of time. And also how the flow of information starts to move between athlete and coach. In my opinion, that changes as an athlete grows and as the relationship grows. So that's kind of what we want to dive into a little bit today.
Love it. Evolution of instruction between two people, a coach and a player relationship that grows and builds, and there's a solid bond that trust is involved, and that same ideology of moving towards one goal. It's a great subject, great topic, and it's a process. I've loved working with athletes that I've had a long-standing relationship with over the years, because all those things that you've mentioned happen. And when those things happen, the athletes are successful at whatever sport they do.
So, what does this evolution look like? In my opinion, when you have a young athlete, the evolution of that, the instruction is really, it ends up being one way. I mean, because obviously the coach has all the knowledge,
right,
and he's trying to impart it to the athlete. So there's that flow that the coach is saying, hey, this is how I want this done. This is how I want that done.
Right.
This is how many reps, instruction, that sort of thing. That's generally what's going to happen at least an initial stage,
right,
whether they're younger or whether they're older. But generally when you have a younger athlete, that's what's happening.
Right.
But I think from there, an athlete should be encouraged to, be a student of the sport, and that communication should start to be more two-way. So you may just taking my own evolution as an athlete and my relationship with my coaches, I kind of went from, hey, Aaron, yes, this is what I want you to do. Mm-hmm. This is how I want you to do it. To, hey, Aaron, how does this feel? What are your thoughts on this?
Right.
To, hey, Aaron, this is a general plan that we're going to work on. What would you like to do within that plan now that you have a base or a database of information that you've gleaned from me for these last few years? Yeah. And then finally, it's me or the coach saying, hey, Aaron, what do you want to do? What do you feel that you need as an athlete? And I think at each stage, it empowers the athlete first with the information, then with the confidence, mm-hmm. then with the trust, and then with the self-knowledge of knowing who he is or she is as an athlete.
Right.
Because I always feel you're going to be your best expert on you.
Right.
Regardless if you've spent 20 years with a coach,
Absolutely.
No one at a certain point should be able to coach you better than yourself.
Oh.
And every elite athlete that I've ever worked with, whether it's myself or Andre Ward or anyone who's, and these guys have had great mentors and great coaches. They've all come to that point in their career where they know how to train themselves. And the coaches and trainers are more or less sounding boards or compasses to kind of keep them on track, or they might be, what do you want to call it? In other words, they might want to, I always say, keeping you honest, so there might be that conscience.
Right.
For instance, I got to a certain point in my career, there are things that I knew, and there are things that I like to do, but like anyone else, sometimes there's things that you should do, but you really don't want to do them, or you procrastinate, or you put them off. And having a coach, or at least a consultant, kept me honest. Say, hey, Aaron, Aaron, now this looks good, but you need to get these in. You're like, yeah, okay, I know, coach. So I think that's the evolution that I like to see with my athletes, and that's what I try and take them through.
Right.
And so I try and create more and more independence with the athlete from day one, even how we have it set up here at Game Speed. Right. So
I love that, Aaron. I like what you say. It's so many really important things came out of what you just explained. One is that there's accountability.
Yes.
For that athlete. The athlete is now accountable for their actions.
Yes.
And the second thing, the athlete owns it. They own their instruction.
Yes.
Now, they own their workout. They own how they eat. They own how they sleep. All of that becomes this whole evolution of how an athlete goes from one stage to the next stage to the next stage. And I think that's so important, these things you say. And it got so familiar with me when you said Andre Ward and all these guys I train. And as I train athletes on the baseball side of it and on the golf side of it, and they ask me, hey EJ, what do you think about this? There's that mentorship. There's the athlete that's saying, hey, can we do this a little bit different? Mm-hmm. And one thing that I've loved about that is that they are their own best coach. I was talking to a young hitter the other day, and I told him this. I said, listen, my goal as your coach is that we have interaction with each other and that you know your swing better than anybody else, even me.
Yes.
Because you're in that competition, you're playing, you know what's going on in that moment better than anybody. Better than me. I can be watching, I can be listening, or whatever you want to, but you're the person that's actually feeling the moment and being in that moment. And by doing that, you are being accountable and you're understanding what you need to be successful in that moment of time to help your development get to that next elite level. And I told him that, and he said, yes, that's awesome. I love that. And I said, that's how I want our relationship to grow and to get better as our evolution, goes forward.
Yeah, I just think as athletes, once you've been in the sport a while, and even not necessarily even for a while, but I think there's something to be said for being able to listen to that inner voice or your gut, mm-hmm. and having a coach that's open to hearing that voice.
Wow.
Again, because just through my own experience, I kind of followed the traditional, kind of, hey, coach knows everything. I'm just going to do everything the coach says. And I mean, I did that all the way up into my adulthood.
Right.
And it wasn't till I got to a point with my coach where he says, Aaron, there's nothing more I can teach you. It was almost liberating, and he gave me the freedom to now trust my own and listen to my own inner voice, because he was also willing to listen to it. And from there, I became a much better athlete. And that was in my, mid-late 20s. And
right.
And so I think even at an earlier age, making an athlete comfortable with expressing that inner voice is important. Now, you may have the ultimate veto power, but what it does is it opens up discussion and to say, hey, well, I see where you're coming from with this, but this is why we need to do things why. And what does that do? It helps educate the athlete even more. It's not just do it because I said it, even though you have these feelings that might be contrary. No, your feelings might be valid, but at this point, this is why we have to do it this way.
That's so important. You know, I was thinking about this the other day. I was teaching this newer athlete that I was training, and this is our fourth time interacting with each other. And the things he was saying, you know, he was able to open up that evolution of instruction. He was right away comfortable expressing himself, saying, I felt that, yeah, I kind of got that. I knew that athlete was practicing at home.
Yeah.
And I knew that athlete was discovering as I was explaining things to him.
Right.
He was jumping levels ahead of where he really should be because of his openness and his willing to take a chance.
Right.
Because you have to be a risk taker and you have to take a chance when you're getting this instruction and trying to move forward. You can't just kind of be apprehensive about it. He was very open to better changes for him to get better. And when I see athletes like that, Aaron, man, that drives me even more to be the best that I can be for that person who's willing to take that chance. And to believe that, you know, because we believe in that, and so when the athlete does that, it drives us too. Yeah.
Well, you've now broken down the barriers for an athlete where, you know, they might be hesitant, and you said the key word. It allows them to discover who they are as an athlete, and I think that's probably the most powerful thing and most important thing that we as coaches and instructors need to keep in mind.
Yeah, that's crucial because athletes are still developing mentally as well as physically.
Right.
And sometimes we always think about that development physically too much as teachers or instructors out there. I know you and I really try to build that mental side of an athlete because we know in competition, that's going to rule out.
Yes.
Right away, the mentally tough athlete is going to rule out, and that's something that you and I do. Is we're always, as we instruct daily, always that mental piece is a crucial part of the development and evolution of that athlete.
Right. Yeah, and parents, mental isn't always mental toughness because that's what people think. It's the ability to emotionally decipher the information and use it correctly and act upon it. So. Two different things, but good topic. I like that.
Yeah, it is. The evolution of this instruction and that relationship between that athlete and the coach, monumental.
Excellent. That'll wrap it up for today.
This is EJ, Coach Eric Johnson, the brand.
And Coach Aaron Thigpen, the source.
Check us out on our social media avenue of Instagram, Twitter, Facebook Live, and check out all our courses and classes over at Hardball Athletics.
All that good stuff. Yep, got my mask on.
I love it.
We'll see you later.
Bye-bye.